Javier, welcome to the show. I'm excited about having you on. This book, your book, 18 Months with Kelly, is look. It's a journey of love. It's a tough conversation, right? That you cover and what you go through, but it is a journey of love, right? I can hear in every word that you write the experiences you had, and it's just such a joy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Anthony. And I just want to start by saying I love you. Thank you for reading my book and thank you for having me on your show.
It's available on Amazon for all those listeners of ours. Take a second. It's a great book, right? It's one of those ones where it doesn't take a long time to read it, and the journey that I go through when I read it in my soul as I go through because it's covered. It's about maybe take the audience through a little bit about what it's about from your words. I think it'd be better than from my words. Let's talk a little bit about what the subject is.
There's an airplane going overhead right now.
Of course.
But yeah, I have definitely been on a journey. And it was a journey prior to meeting Kelly. And then after I met her, there was the journey that we went on together, where I got to really understand having a soulmate. But then after she passed away, um, I was led on another journey. And that particular journey, I'm still on it. And but this book, it's taken 8 years to write it since her death. Um, the book ends at the end of 2 years. And so there's been another 6 years worth of living that's been going on, which I'm writing about now. And it'll be followed up with my second book called Through Javi's Eyes. Javi's my nickname from when I was a little boy. And all my family and a lot of my friends that knew me when I was a youngster know me as Javi. But in this book, I'm Javier Veliz Jr. And I'm really, really happy that I finally was able to get it completed.
It takes a lot to write a book. Having a time I've talked to authors and I interview them all the time. And when I sit down or anything you want to do, it takes something to do this, right? It is not it's one thing to think about it, right? It's another thing to actually sit there and start to write to do this. And when you look back over this, what was it that triggered you? What got the pen to paper and had you start writing?
Anthony, that's interesting. I kind of always knew that I might be a writer, but I'm not educated as a writer. I didn't go to any formal training. I never took any classes for it. I just speak truth. And for me, it was so hard to walk through what I walked through. But when I put it into words, it comes back to me like I was just there. I think I expressed in the book that there have been times when I feel like it took 5 years for her from the date she was diagnosed with cancer to the date she died, which was only 72 days, 73 days. But it felt like 5 years during that period of time. And then today, when I think about her and I reflect upon her like I did before I got on the podcast, it feels like it was yesterday. And I remember all the details as if it was yesterday. So what happened for me with the creative process was that as things started to occur after she died, at first I thought, well, that's a coincidence. And then I thought, well, that's a coincidence. And then I thought, well, that's a coincidence. And then it started to unfold in front of me. And as that occurred, I thought, I need to document this. So I went and bought a little handheld from Radio Shack, a little recorder that I could actually talk into. And I just started to talk about everything that had been happening all the way through my journey to Hawaii the first time. then I ended up giving that recording to Marianne Miller, who worked for me, and I paid her to transcribe that into a PDF format. And then once it was in the PDF format, then I started to get on my computer and reflect, and I started to add and continue to add and continue to add, and and that's how the whole process just started for me.
I think it's interesting you go through, because I talk about this all the time. The the process by which everything we've ever seen, there's nothing on this planet that is man-made that did not start in some form or fashion that exact way, right? First, it's an idea, right? I get this idea. Nothing starts with an idea. You don't just make things up. They don't just happen as there's this thought, right? And there's this thing, there's this reason why this idea, a problem I'm trying to solve. And now I start to do it. Now you start to now you go out and actually get a recorder, right? Now you take the recorder and you ask someone to type it for you. Now you start to work from there, right? And each part of that, to me, is the idea expands where I am at, right? As a man, I find humans to be the most creative beings on the planet. There is no more creative beings than we are. And some of us have a lot more creativity than others, but that creativity, when we really break down, when we start to remove all of the fears, anxieties, resentments, all that anger stuff that covers up that creative being in us, we do that our own self work, right? When we do the work, and now we start to that creativity part of that creative part of you comes out, right? And it's flowing, right? I mean, once you start the flow going, your life is a great example of that. The art that you've created, the stuff. I mean, that art piece you have behind you is just, you guys, you've got to see Javier's artwork. It is some coolest artwork that's out there. It's beautiful. It's there's a whole bunch of, you gotta see this in the book. There's a whole bunch of pieces on it. His writings, the stuff that he writes in there, very creative. And what feels like to me is that once we open that lid, once we take the lid off of that and we start to really flow, we get into the flow of creativity, all of a sudden that starts to happen, and you manifest a book and multiple books, and now the artwork that's flowing, and the travels and the journeys that you're doing, and the speaking that you're doing with others, the inspiration that you are. I think that's the story to tell. Is so many of us are afraid to tell that, to stand in our creative part of us.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I think that everybody has a story. Everybody has a story inside them, and I just have this. It's a gift that God gave me to be able to express my feelings through my artwork, express my feelings when I sing, and now to express my artwork through my writing, and my feelings are my writing, and I'm just really grateful. I'm humbled. I really am humbled.
Well, I mean, there's a certain part of me that feels like the Industrial Revolution that was created, it kind of said, and look, all these beautiful buildings and all this amazing stuff in our government, all the system that we have by which we all live in, it works, right? We have this whole thing, this whole life, this whole country of ours that's, built. And what it really feels like to me was, for a period of time, we kind of said, all right, look, we need you not to be creative. We need you guys to go to school. We need you to act like this, right? And in school, they taught us how to stop being creative and just start doing this. Right? We want you to write like this. We want you to spell like this. We want you to, and there was this machine that kicked out these industrial builders, right? And the part of us that today we can see in our society where young people, I was doing some work yesterday with a group of people on the Into Forever and the suicide prevention work that we do. And more than ever, the people are really hurting. You can really feel the hurt in humans, because I think a lot of us have put the lid on that, and now just needing to express ourselves, right? And the machine that was created, where we're realizing, may not be right, right? It may have worked for a little bit, but today I need to be able to express myself, right? And that part that you're doing, that journey that you're on, is ultimately living, right? The journey of the human as we go through the creativity, and inside of it, it's inspiring, right? My want is that today's podcast really inspires those of us that are out there going, can I do this? Javier, when you first did this, I mean, how did you go from can I do this to doing it?
Gosh, my gosh, it just happened, and going back to the process, and let me just give credit to, first of all, give credit to my creator, and then I also give credit to Kelly, but I have to start with my creator because my creator gave allowed her to be able to share with me this, and she led me, and that is what it proved to me is that love doesn't die, that it continues on, and and there are human beings that when they pass on to the next life, they become just as strong, if not stronger, than their presence was on earth, and and that was what really guided me. And as a human being, I would get sidetracked. I'd get sidetracked often. I mean, it took 8 years to actually write the book once I realized that I wanted to do it, maybe 7.5 years. And, and I would get sidetracked. I would get discouraged. I'd stop and I would self-doubt myself. I think I'm not good enough to do this. And then there were naysayers. There were people that put me down. They said I was trying to keep her memory alive. And there was someone that once said to me, how could you write a book about a woman that you only knew for 18 months? And, that played with my head, and there were others that said things to me like, you're just living in the past, and I would think to myself, I would actually fall into my humanness and actually stop because I would get discouraged. And then something would happen and it would spark that fire in me again, and I would start again. And so there were so many people that I acknowledged in the acknowledgments along the way that helped me. Um, I went through 3 editors before I found Nancy Kuykendall, and she's an author of many books. And it just turns out that I never paid attention to her books because they were mostly Pentecostal faith-based books. And I would see them on Facebook and I would just kind of like hit like and move on, hit like and move on. But then one day, at the beginning of this year of 2022, I already had figured out how the book would end. I figured out the middle parts of it, and I just really needed an editor that I could work with that would help me. And it turns out that 30 years ago, I knew Nancy in church, and I helped her. I helped her because I was a cantor, singing for about 5 masses at Catholic Church per week, and she ended up becoming our organist, piano player, and she was hired and did not know a thing about the Catholic Mass. So I ended up teaching her when this is going on, what is happening, and why does this happen at this time, and why do we sing here, and why do we do this? And I taught her everything about the Catholic Mass. And when I left that church, she continued on playing there. And so when I approached her in January, she says, "I'll take a look." She goes, "I don't know if I'll be able to help you, but I'll take a look, and maybe I can refer you to someone else I know." But then after she read the first chapter, she got back to me and she says, "I can help you with this." And so we figured out what the price would be for her time and for her efforts and her talents. And then we started on the journey in February, might have been the beginning of March. We knocked it out in 5 months, and she went through every chapter and helped and would go back and forth to me. changing people's names, because there were people that loved Kelly that were in this book that did not want to talk to me about it and did not want to be in the book. And that hurt. But I also understood it took me some spiritual guidance from my Nina, Angie, I mentioned her, and some others. It's basically told me that everyone grieves differently. And you have to remember that you were so close to her that maybe it hurts them when they hear about her. And this book is not for them. This book is for others. And once I understood that, then I was okay with accepting the fact that I wasn't going to get 100% on board with all the people that would have been in this book.
You know, it's interesting how each one of us has a different journey, right? Like you go through these, to you, the importance of writing the book. It's overwhelming. To other people, their way of grieving is not talking about it. And it always surprises me because I'm always surprised that people don't grieve the way I do. I'm like, what do you mean? Do it, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's, and that's like my human, my judgmental human. And, at the time, as we go through this, and especially a tough subject like someone dying and going through that, it becomes, um, you start to notice that, right? All right. So they had a problem. They didn't want to bring it back up again. They wanted, to them, putting a lid on this whole scenario is where they're looking to go. And, you continue to move forward on it. And, because that's part of your healing, right? I can never, ever, I'm never going to make everybody happy. I've tried, I'm done trying to make the world happy. That is an experience that is exhausting and never ending and will never work. But today, the work that I do, right, like the way you're doing on this book, it's about you and where you're going in life, right? The healing that you need to go through that process. And then maybe, just maybe, that the work that you do, my work it helps some other man's work, right? It becomes their work and helps them as they read through the book. I certainly, as I read this, to really hear the love and hear what I really heard was Kelly as she guided you, right? She becomes that the part that helps move, she kind of gets it and drives you. There's this driver called Kelly that really, through love, really takes Javier, the creative part, and drives you into a direction. And I can hear that in the writings that you have, right? So I can see how important that is. It really becomes, part of your story. And everybody else may not relate to the same way to do it, but I think as I read it, it inspired me. Like I look at my wife a lot like Kelly, in that I am often like thought of as a balloon, a creative balloon that will float, and she just gets to hold the little end of it to keep me from floating away. Right? She just kind of gives me to like, I'm just gonna hold on to the little end of that thing right there. And I'm gonna hold on to that just to make sure you don't go floating. But she gives me enough room to go be creative and to go do the stuff that we need to do. And I likewise in turn do the same for her as she goes through her journey, because her journey is a little bit different than my journey. And that's not something I ever realized before. Doing this kind of male work, the men's work that we do, and the work that we work on as men.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, I just wanted to say, Anthony, that really, it was really a tribute to her, but, um, you know, she was my biggest, fan. And she would always she propped me up. And she just made me feel like I was really important. And she did it with the cards that she wrote to me, and the things that she said. And you know, I said, like I said earlier, I've been creative my whole life. Singing, and then artwork, and then and then this. But I think that she wanted me to just see my potential. That was the thing that probably meant the most to me, was as the book unfolded, I started to believe in my potential.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, right? I mean, that angel that she was, right, in the middle of a tough time in her life, that angel, right? And sometimes I don't see the gift of the experiences we go through, right? You know, Kelly going through what she went through, but the gift of, somewhere in this world, I always figured we press into this time, we choose to, right? Wherever we are before we get here, we choose to press into this now time, and the work that we do while we're here, right, matters, right? Now, a lot of us don't know that. A lot of us walk around drinking Miller Lite, watching TV, and just they're blazed by the stuff that's the addictions that drive our humanness. I have a dog, and my dog, when she runs in the room, she just sniffs every crotch and eats everything she can find, and I spent a lot of my life doing that. This beautiful life, this experience of running around smelling crotches all day, and it was a little bit, and it was this, especially as a young man, it was this adventure, and then that became boring. And I started to realize there's this inner voice, that voice that drove you to write this book, that voice, that voice that lives inside of us to be supportive of others. The work that Kelly did, right? That somewhere in there, there's a higher level of life, not just eating pizza and drinking Miller Lite. It's just there's a higher purpose to this being, this human that I this vehicle that I drive, this vehicle I drive as human is great, right? Look, like I can dance and I can drive cars, and it's a great vehicle, right? This is better than any Ferrari I've ever been in. This is the human body. It's this amazing ride. Now I have this gift to go and do something. Now, what is that gift, and how do I yield the sword that I've been giving? How do I go yield that sword to go and really do fight battles that are worthy? And when I read your book, Javier, I hear that. I hear how the voice of love and the way that really emanates through a tough experience, and the guidance you have for others to go through this, right? You're a supporter of nature, how you supported her all the way along the way, the work that you do, and the way that you are through this. Great guidance book, right? These are conversations like, what do I do? Do I run? Right? Because I mean, there's a part of you that had to feel like running, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's a part of you like, oh my God, I got myself into something here. And because it's early in your relationship when this happens. And then what you learn
Right.
by not running, right? To stand in that uncomfortableness as a human. And that's a lot. We're not taught to do that. There's nobody in our school, like there was never a part in school where anybody pulled me aside and go, look, you're going to be uncomfortable. And it's just part of life, right? You're going to go through these experiences as you go through life, and it's going to be uncomfortable. In fact, I'm taught everything else. If you want to feel good, drink Coca-Cola. If you want to do, if you want to have a smile, have a Coke and a smile, or have a Happy Meal, right? These are the things that are going to make me happy. And the truth is that being uncomfortable, it's actually okay, right? I could stand in a moment of that and do the work while I'm uncomfortable, like as you're going through the tough conversation that you went through. And then the real gift is in going through that, right? Going with the gift of discovery of yourself, right? The part of you that is in service of another human being through the most difficult part of her life, the ending of her life. And then how does that really emanate the create your soul, right? How does that really open your soul to a place that wasn't available when we're takers, right? It's not there. That access isn't there. You can't get there from taking. It's just not available.
You know, I'm listening to what you're saying, and then I'm thinking about about my art, my artwork, um, and how I needed my artwork in order to sleep. I needed my artwork after she died. I needed my artwork to just keep me going, and I would paint myself to sleep. And I made 100 paintings in 12 months time, and that just it just flowed, and but it would help me to fall asleep, and then I would be obsessed with finishing the paintings and knocking them out. I don't know if that I just know that I was compelled, and I just got pushed forward, and that's the only way that I could find relief, because I was going through major depression, and and I didn't know how long it was going to take to get out of it. I was still feeling pretty depressed, even by the time I made it to the second time I went to Hawaii in the 2 years. And now I know that there's so many people that I know now that the feelings that they have for their lost loved ones, that it hardly ever leaves. It stays, and it's just learning how to live with it and finding purpose. And that's the thing that's occurred for me, is that I have found some purpose, and I got to find out through the process of this book that I was Native American, Yaqui Indian, and and to find out how that all fit in together, and how coincidental that it all came together while I was with Kelly, and then after she died, and how I even became even more so, and where it stands with me today. Um, in the book, I was able to position this particular feather right here that was given to me in my journey to Hawaii the second time, and that particular feather, giving it to me um, by my friend, Two Feathers, I ended up learning um, that I have a purpose, and I've been working on that purpose ever since. And I really believe that the second book is really where that's going to come out.
Well, and as you go through that, right, these little journeys, I mean, like finding out you're indigenous. I mean, today I was watching a study on the Canadian indigenous people and the traumas that they've gone through as a society, right? I mean, generational traumas, right? 5% of the people in Canada are indigenous people. 30% of the people in jail are indigenous people, and the numbers just don't make sense. The depression and the depression of a society that's there, right? As you start to really go look at, uh, the places where, again, we were more interested in building this world and this community, these cities, these big, this country, which is beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, we live in a beautiful, amazing country, but the problem is a lot of the stuff that we did forgot that the most important part of the human is the creativity, right? That in which us that has been here forever, that in which it's inside of us. I don't have to do anything. It's actually naturally mine, right? That indigenous people that come from the earth in a way of being that pay homage to their roots, and we have a lot to learn from there. Like, we turn that off. We're like, well, we don't want to learn any of your stuff. I mean, some of the amazing medical, medicines and medical ideas, and the way they're like, no, that wasn't built by, our big companies didn't make that, so we can't listen to those people. But today we're seeing these journeys, these ayahuasca journeys, these meditative shaman journeys, where people are going back and realizing, you can't give me enough pills to get me where I really need to be. And there are some indigenous technologies that we forgot about. And so talk to me about the journey as you're finding you're coming back to your native state. So how's that going?
Well, I felt the most relief when I found myself in going into my first native sweat, and the native sweat. It was just the most beautiful experience, um, and I did that a number of times in the first couple of years after Kelly had passed away. After I had learned about um, my family tree, and my great grandmother Marcadia, and my great grandmother Sasadia, and my grandpa Joe, and my mom. I put them in the book because I could see my lineage. I could see it was right there, but I just never knew until after Kelly died. And So um, when I got involved with the sweat lodges, that was one thing. But what ended up happening is that um, later on, I ended up having a heart attack. And because of that, I was advised by doctors to not go into those sweat lodges anymore because of the fact that the heat can be upwards of about 110 to 115 to 20 degrees. And they thought that that was not good for me. So I've even had to back off my my hot yoga. I don't go as consistently as frequently as I did in the past, just because I can feel the difference when I'm in the heat. So I don't go the way that I used to out of fear. So maybe it's just fear, and maybe I just need um, to trust and do it. But I don't know. I'm just my humanness is just kind of like weighing things. And
It's amazing. You know, the indigenous folks, if indigenous cultures have so much for us to learn, right? There's such a wealth of knowledge, and it's really important for us. I work with a man here in Illinois who is a part of a tribal council, and the work that they're doing to try to bring that back, not to lose that which they've had forever. And then the truth is, a lot of the stuff that they had that's been taken from them, right? Even their rituals and the ways that their stuff they're using, and they're trying to go back and reclaim that those rituals and those that work that was there. So, look, I think as we continue to have a journey like this, Javier, the work that you do in this part of your life, this book that you write is just at the beginning of the story. Right. I can really feel that if those that are out there, if you're listening to this, you really want you to get that there's the love that's here, the story that you tell, the work that you're doing, it is phenomenal. It's an opening, and what comes from that, I always laugh because we never know what's going to happen because of the work that you did with Kelly, right? It just where that goes and how that unfolds, more is to be revealed. And Javier, I got to tell you, the book you wrote really does touch my soul. It was great to read it. Audience, it's an easy one to read. So grab it, pass it on to anybody that's going through a tough time. It's a great story. That's the other thing to talk about is your gift that you've done. You wrote the book, and not only did you write the book, but you're also gifting a percentage of profits to the American Cancer.
yeah, let me explain that. Um, so first thing I want to say is that on the book, I wrote down that 10% of all sales will go to various cancer foundations because I don't know about the different types of events that'll occur over time with the book. Um, and so, but when I had those 100 paintings, um, there was an art show uh, that tribute art show for Kelly that occurred just a little bit after the year after her death. And the beneficiary of that was the Bonnie J. Dario Lung Cancer Foundation out of San Mateo, California, in the Bay Area. And that's the type of, she had a type of lung cancer that affected women um, under the age of 50 that never smoked. And that was her. And it's a common lung cancer, and there's a lot of research being done on trying to find out how to combat it, how to detect it earlier, and whatnot.
You certainly are to be celebrated for the work that you do, brother. It's great work, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud to have read the book. I'm proud to be part of getting your light out there, shining light on this amazing project that you're doing. Every time that you have something new come up, I'd love to have you on the podcast. Our audience is a great variety of folks, and we love when we can touch that little piece inside of us that's tender, and your book does that in a beautiful way and inspires. Hopefully, will inspire others to really continue to be creative and use the gifts of our life experiences to help others through them. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Okay, Anthony, I appreciate you. Thank you. I love you.
I love you too, brother. Thanks for being on here. Audience, if you liked the show and if you loved it as much as I love doing it with Javier, being on the show together, please take a second and like and subscribe. It means the world to me. Javier, if people want to get a hold of you, first of all, the book, 18 Months with Kelly, right? It's available on Amazon, and it's great. I picked it up. I had it the next day, and it's a great book. So it's 18 Months with Kelly. Make sure that you go look it up and pick up a couple copies for you and your friends, and enjoy it. If Javier, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best place for them to get a hold of you? Is there email or somewhere they can get a hold of you?
You could, I mean, I'm obviously on Facebook, and so if you friend me, Javier Veliz Jr., that's one way. But I also, I have my email address, and I don't mind putting it out there. It's my name, Javier at. So my name is spelled Javier, Javier at JVJ, John Victor John, Javier at jvjfinancial.com.
Thank you very much, brother, for being on the show. And as always, keep listening, folks, and let us know if there's anybody out there you want us to welcome on the show. So thanks again.
Peace and love.
Peace. Thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony Amunategui, always looking for people to bring insight into the industry, finding ways to inspire people to have amazing careers in the development world. If you liked our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really liked our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Thanks again for listening. Please share it with your friends.